I think it's fabulous to be back. It's great to be a member of such an outgoing, informative, caring team that's ensuring everybody's safety, and safety is paramount for everybody. Like everybody else, I had my experiences in lockdown. I live on my own in the old Dundee Royal Infirmary, which is a lovely old building in Dundee. Hopefully, Assemble will take a few photographs of it and we can have parts of that into the central library. Lockdown initially was really quite difficult as for everybody else. But then the clarion call went out to the NHS, so I swapped my V&A for my NHS. I only work for organisations that only have letters in their name. So I went there for just over 3 months. As you can imagine, a very stressful time for all the staff. I have to say that NHS were tremendous. They reconfigured the hospital very, very quickly. They had the COVID wards at the east end of the hospital, everything else, so that would be the red wards, and then everything else would be amber wards. And then as we moved towards reopening the hospital, we'd have the green wards, which were people who had isolated and then were coming in totally COVID free. So if you were working in the red wards, you could never work in the green wards. So it was very, very careful. Tons of PPE, although I have to say that for the plastic aprons, one size doesn't fit all, So I had to stretch mine somewhat. So you can imagine there's high anxiety levels for the staff, obviously, because visitors were not allowed in for such a long time. The distress and stress, and as Kate mentioned, the resultant funerals that had to be done by Zoom increased people's distress. There was some sickness due to physical and psychological problems. There was a lot of people who were on maternity leave had to be shielded early because pregnant women were at risk. So it was a very, very difficult time. Plus, there's always shortages of staff in the NHS. So to come back to some sort of normality in the V&A is a relief, it's a pleasure. It's also a responsibility because as part of the regeneration of the city 2 years ago when we opened up, that was huge responsibility. Now we have a sort of different regeneration. We have the regeneration and rehabilitation of society, which we have to play a very important role of, showing some semblance of normality. I think as people have alluded to, people have been coming to V&A feel very, very safe. I think we've done that exceptionally well. I think, the one-way system, I think everybody wearing masks. I do have a bit of a zero tolerance with that one. If I see someone taking off the mask, I will use my dad voice and get people to put the mask back on. But on the whole, just do that, pull your own mask and people will respond. And people have been very compliant. Because we have so much hand gel around, people are feeling exceptionally safe. I think the guidance and the instructions given from my colleagues have been excellent, and everybody's been very calm, even in the face of irate visitors coming to the front door, not quite understanding the website, and perhaps not printing off the tickets or the printer's been faulty, and the person on the welcome desk working so hard, and always being calm and reasonable and helpful. It's reassured everybody. So I think on the whole, everybody's come in, we've resolved the problems. It is a bit difficult, after a few hours talking loudly to people through your mask can be a bit tiring. You do have a bit of a COVID voice by the end of the day, which causes slight anxieties to everybody. But yeah, it's fabulous. You come into because we have fewer visitors, there is the opportunity to actually talk to people in the SDG, because people will always look at something and go, well, what's that? And then you can always tell some fantastic story behind it, which always engages people. The Oak Room has been a bit of a challenge as well, because there's a limited numbers. So people will come in and they feel it comes alive when you start to tell them stories. And you can tell them everything from when the Oak Room was built to the fact that Macintosh was accused of being a spy. So there's loads of stories to tell there. But they always have one eye on the door because they can see somebody else coming in. So there's no the opportunity for them to relax quite as much. But people are really enjoying the experience. demographics coming to Mary Quant, they know exactly what they want, and I think Mary Quant is delivering that. It's something that's lovely, it's safe, it allows them to reminisce and look back with rose-coloured spectacles, and you know, you have all these essentially ladies coming out, and it is a tsunami of contentment, I would say, when people come out. You know, they really do enjoy it, and I think probably more than any other exhibition, people have come up and said, that was brilliant, I loved it, it was great. You do get the occasional man saying it was a bit like shopping, but you know, it's exactly what people were wanting at this time. The other one, yeah, now accepting contactless, I think is less safe, obviously. I think it's a bit more thought-provoking. I'm not sure that it's everybody's cup of tea because we're still in the middle of the pandemic, but that's fine. I think it's our job not only to entertain, but educate and make be thought-provoking and actually address current issues. Again, we'll have announcements today. Who knows what the next step in the pandemic is? But you will be pleased to know that Dundee has plague laws since 1456, based on best practice from Italy and France. So we've been through this before in Dundee in the 1640s and again in 1918, and we'll get through this again. So we have to be very positive. I did have a lovely lady that spoke to me. She had the mask exempt lanyard on. She had travelled specially to come to Dundee to see the V&A and to see Mary Quant. She had been shielded for 6 months. So her first trip at all was to come down and see us. She, again, you know, it's been mentioned that people are very emotional about this in this time. She became a bit tearful. She did say how wonderful she found the museum on its own, even just the museum on its own, she was really happy with. Quant, she loved, and she said, yeah, it was worth that long wait to come because it made her feel, I think as Russell had said, made people feel normal again. So someone who had respiratory problems, but felt safe enough to come to our museum, despite the fact that she had chronic obstruction of the pulmonary disease, so had difficulty breathing, would obviously be mask exempt. So the fact that someone who is at risk like that felt safe enough to come to us, I think is testament to everything we've done to make the place safe and welcoming. It's not quite a living room for the city, but somewhere that people feel safe and comfortable again. You know, at a time where COVID, the impact will be with us for some time. It's not just the physical aspect of it, it's the psychological aspect. We'll have lots of people with anxiety problems, with depression, who will find it, and that's not only people that have had it, but people have been isolated for so long. So to build up the confidence slowly for everybody, I think is hugely important. And it will be part of the recovery for many individuals and for society as a whole. And I, for one, am privileged to be part of it.